from over here from a very hot, humid, and sticky South Florida. First of all, let me give a couple, introduce myself a little bit. I am one of the Southern Region Directors for the Bromeliad Society International, which is a worldwide organization. I was down in San Diego near you guys for the World Conference a couple years back. I'm also very involved. I was the past president. I've held many board positions for the Bromeliad Society of South Florida, which is the largest Bromeliad society in the state of Florida, with a membership of just over 200 members. I'm also the president for the International Aroid Society, which is another worldwide organization in conservation, exploration, and education of the world of aroids. But nevertheless, I'm an avid grower. I've been, since probably at age 11, 12, I began to get pretty in-depth into all kinds of plant families. I mean, I've gone from growing vegetables in the backyard to growing roses to growing fruit trees, and it became a spiraling addiction that I ended up pretty much becoming comfortable with orchids and bromeliads. And bromeliads pretty much has been what has been pivotal, has been pretty much taken me to insane to the point that I now have a small business in bromeliads. I have well over 2,000 plus plants in 2 large greenhouses down near the southern tip of the state. Very near the Florida Keys, if anybody knows, has any kind of geography of Florida. So I'm literally about 20, 25 miles south of Miami. So it's a very tropical, very humid environment. We have our rainy season and our dry season, just like you guys experience down in California. We just get a lot of rain and hurricanes and everything you can imagine come our way. So pretty much my presentation tonight is in regards to tillandsias. We have 2 incredible growers down here in South Florida that have been in not only in the business, one of them has been in the business for over 50 years. This gentleman, which I will show you in my slides as soon as I get it up, is a gentleman who literally is remarkable in every way, shape, and form. Give me one quick second. Let me get the slides up so you guys can see it. All right, so Paul, give me a thumbs up if you see the slide. Okay, so my program tonight is pretty much on 2 great growers. Steve Coriel pretty much is going to be the majority of this program, and then another new grower by the name of Nestor Del Rio. But pretty much you're seeing there on your screen, this is Steve Coriel's yard. And Steve Coriel is till this day, still alive with 96 years old. This gentleman, even till his birthday a few weeks back, this gentleman goes outside with all of the medical complication he has, and he sits in the same little corner in the yard, mounting his tillandsias, hybridizing, obviously with his son helping him to a certain degree. But this is a remarkable individual. This individual has been growing these plants for 50 plus years. This man literally was in fought in World War II. This individual I've met him personally. I've become very close friends of his for the last 15 years. And I have, firsthand witnessed all the growing and all the hybridizing he's done. And I have no words to describe. And so the first slide here, that is Steve holding a clump of one of his first hybrids, which is called Tillandsia Steve. And this is a Chiapensis cross with fasciculata. So before I get into a little bit more in depth into the program, you know, a lot of folks ask, well, how did a lot of these hybrids originate? How did a lot of these plants come to fruition? So the majority of plants, so a lot of tillandsias have been hybridized with many species. You have Tillandsia chiapensis, which is a species from Mexico and Central America. Steve first went down to Honduras and to Mexico and started collecting a lot of these species to then make some of these hybrids that I'm going to show you guys through the presentation. So a lot of common tillandsias that you guys probably know about in California, which are called, you got Chiapensis, you got Tillandsia streptophylla, you got Tillandsia capitata, you got Tillandsia fasciculata, and you have Tillandsia xerographica. So all of these are the parents of the crosses that I'm going to show you. And you're going to also see some Iantha crosses as well that are starting to come in line, that my nursery is releasing them for the first time through Steve and through Nestor. So I'm going to go ahead and start showing you guys. So the first picture that you see there with Steve holding is Tillandsia Steve. That's Chiapensis cross with fasciculata. So you have some really, really frosty pink bracts with purple blooms on it. And you see both characteristics of both parents. You see the characteristics of Chiapensis, which causes the very, very fuzzy on the leaves. And then you have the inflorescence of fasciculata, of Chiapensis, I'm sorry. So you see how two different plants crossed create a spectacular beauty as that. So this is Nestor Del Rio. He is the other grower down here in Miami. As you see behind him, he's got probably a good 40 to 50 new hybrids coming into line. And in my slides, I'm going to show you some of the spectacular hybrids he's coming across. And we've got literally a waiting list on a lot of these plants, including Tropiflora. For those of you that know Tropiflora in Sarasota, I've got Brian from Tropiflora and Dennis trying to get their hands on some of these. I got Paul Isley wanting to get his hands on these. I've got Frank Mazzina from Tillandsias International that are in line to get some of these hybrids. So as they come along, we're releasing them. But you're going to see how incredible some of these hybrids that these two gentlemen have made. And I mean, they're just stunning. They are just stunning hybrids. And you guys are going to be amazed with how beautiful they are. So these are aerial views of Steve's yard. You're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of plants. Tillandsias mixed in with orchids and mixed in with all kinds of ant plants and everything you can imagine. His property is about a quarter of an acre. Little Havana, which is literally in the most populous part of Miami-Dade County and in Miami. And this was a picture that I took above the ladder and just got above the actual chain line. And you can see these are grown in full sun, absolutely zero shade cloth, zero protection from the elements. These plants have endured hurricanes from Hurricane Andrew in 1992 to every hurricane that has come through the Miami area or brushed us close by. All these plants have endured there. And yes, we've had some collapses. He's had some collapses and stuff, but it is what it is. There is no way, it is impossible to move any plants from where they're at. Here's more aerial views of his growing area from different angles. And I mean, it's mesmerizing the amount of plants he has. And quite frankly, he does not water them. He does not do much care for them other than he applies time-release fertilizer, and he also creates these little bunches with pool screen tied to a little tie wrap and attached too near the plant as for fertilizer. That is it. He does not do much of anything else to these plants. But I am going to show you some tricks that he showed me and some tricks that I use in my nursery to grow these plants out for him. So I can continue. So unfortunately, whenever the day passes, we can have some people that are still growing and continue the legacy that he's had through the years. So these are some of the views and some of the other plants. As you can see, he grows them in these black plastic orchid baskets, and we have them both. Hold on. So he has these growing in little orchid baskets. In the black ones, we have the round ones. We also have the square ones, mainly 4 and 6 inch is what pretty much we use. We have the solid metal hanger on it. As you can see, a lot of these plants, you do not see the 4-prong hangers. What does that do? That causes a lot of these big tillandsias. So when they start growing out, those hangers cause obstruction. And for those of you that like to enter plants into show and stuff, you know, it does distort the leaves a little bit.
Alex,
Yes.
Somebody's making a lot of background noise that I hear that's not muted. And
Hey, you guys have to mute yourself.
so if
I'm going to go down and I can mute you from my end. So if I don't see you muted, I'm going to mute you.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, so
ahead,
as I
Alex.
go along, these are more views of Steve's yard. You can see in the first slide there on the first picture, you can see his house right there. So you're seeing just thousands of feet of just chain with tillandsias galore, just literally hanging all over the yard. And then this is a ground view. You can see these are both pictures. This is a ground level view from the ground. As you see, there is no grass. There is nothing. It's just pure soil with some weeds and stuff in between. But you can see how a collection of so many years has just grown to an extent that it's just remarkable. I mean, the pictures give it a disservice of how incredible this gentleman's yard is. Here's more pictures. I mean, he collects, he recycles pretty much all material, every terracotta pot, driftwood and everything, and he attaches everything. He uses whatever he can get at his disposal just to, you know, mount orchids, mount bromeliads, mount tillandsias, mount anything he likes. And if you guys notice on the second picture, if you look at the top left, you see the little fertilizer bag that I was mentioning. That's the technique that Steve uses for fertilization of his plants. So every time it rains or he has to water during the dry season, you see how the little baggie is on the top, pretty much on the top left corner, and that pretty much drips down into the plants. Now, he does not use that per se for the tillandsias. He only throws, if it's a big plant that it's in bloom or coming into bloom, he will get some pellets of that fertilizer and throw it into the cup of the tillandsia. And that actually does help nourish that tillandsia to the point that when we as growers and hybridizers, when we want to pump a tillandsia, in other words, what I mean as in pump is when you want to get that plant to put out a lot of offsets, you want to fertilize that plant heavily after it blooms and even during the plant blooming, and you're going to see a lot of offsets. And even after you remove all the offsets, if that plant hasn't rotted or died out, you're going to get more offsets. I've had tillandsias produce literally, I want to say between 8 and 12 offsets easily. So this is, as I showed you in the first picture from Steve, that was tillandsia Steve. Well, Steve went ahead and crossed tillandsia Steve again with another tillandsia Steve that he had. And tillandsia Steve has 4 bracts. Normally on average has 3 to 4 bracts. Well, this is tillandsia Super Steve that he registered. So when he did that cross, he got this plant. He got a sport that came out and bloomed with approximately 12 bracts. I brought this to one of the guild show, the Southwest Guild Show, which is an organization that does, it's a bromeliad society organization, just like your club. that has regional shows and sales from Texas to Louisiana, and they had theirs in Dallas. And I first brought this plant over there for release. I would tell you within the first 20 minutes of the sales area opening up, I brought 14 plants, offsets of this plant. They all sold. And guess where they went? They went to Encinitas, California, to Pam Coity in Bird Rock Tropicals. And she was just absolutely amazed of how big this bloom is. Literally the size, kid you not, just the size of a soccer ball. That is how big this bloom bract is. And that picture that you're seeing there, that bloom goes just over a year. Just like that. That bloom is approximately 9 to 10 months. And that plant continues. That is one of the extraordinary things about Tillandsias. And Ken can pretty much tell you guys from some of the items he's gotten from me, these plants in bloom last a long, long time. So that's Tillandsia Super Steve. It's a cross between Chiapensis with Fasciculata Panama. Fasciculata is a native, especially down here in South Florida. It's native to the Everglades. And you find those down in Everglades National Park. You find those down in the Bahamas. You find it pretty much anywhere in the West Indies. So pretty much the West Indies is anything from Hispaniola, which is the Dominican Republic and Haiti. You find this all over the island chain, the island of Cuba. You can find these in the Cayman Islands, and you can find these on the Yucatan Peninsula, anywhere pretty much from the tip of the Yucatan southward into Guatemala and Honduras. So this is a batch of Steve's and Chiapas gigantesco in the front. This was when Hurricane Irma was bearing down on my area in 2005. I literally brought in hundreds, if not thousands of plants into enclosures that I had in my terrace in the backyard, which was large enough to hold at least the most valuable plants that I wanted to protect from the category 4 hurricane that was bearing down on us. And this was a nice crop of plants. And I saw them. I'm like, let me take a picture, because these are pretty nice little specimens I had. So here's another remarkable plant that Steve made a cross with, and this is Tillandsia King Cobra. This is a Chiapensis cross with Boderii. Boderii is a sport of Fasciculata. Chiapensis obviously is the species that comes from Central America. This is a cross, as you can see, there are several different crosses of, you have sports of King Cobra, you have Queen Cobra, you have King Cobra, and then you have a normal Cobra. The distinctions with each of these plants is King Cobra bracts nearly twist, and they go everywhere. They twist and turn, and as you can see in these two pictures, they just go in every direction. I want to say this plant was just about 2 feet tall, and I have had plants, and I have one that we are preparing to register. It's called Super King Cobra, which we were able to get that plant to grow almost to 4 feet tall. So truly a remarkable plant. As I said, easy to grow. Many folks are going to ask, well, this particular plant, do you have it hanging in a basket? Do you have it hanging anywhere? If I were to tell you, if you look closely in the second picture, you're going to see a little piece of string tied to the bloom bract. We hang them when they come into bloom. We pull them out of their baskets, and we hang them with a regular piece of cloth string and attach a little wire in the top. And a lot of folks that I've gone and done this presentation for have asked, well, why would you do that? Does that harm the bloom? No, it does not harm the bloom. The reason we do that is because the offsets emerge from the base. And what I want is these plants, I want when the offsets come out to be unobstructed. I don't want any kind of obstruction to distort the offset or cause any kind of damage to the offsets. So we've been doing that for a long time. That was a trick that Steve taught me about a good 15 years ago, and we've continued to do that trick, and it's worked out pretty well for us. This is Tillandsia Queen Cobra. It is the same cross It's the only difference is it's a sport. So when you make hybrids, you have a grex or a group of the same plant that came from the same cross, and you have different forms of it. So King Cobra's blooms are twisted and they're all over the place. Queen Cobra forms a more of a candelabra type of a bloom. The actual bracts bend inward. They bend inward and it looks like a chandelier. So that's the difference between King Cobra and Queen Cobra. It's the same cross, just a different bloom type. As you can see, to your left, you have Queen Cobra, and to your right, you have King Cobra. If you can see, there's a distinct difference between the way that the bloom bracts twist and how the other bloom bract pretty much forms a candelabra type shape. This is more variations of King Cobra. So you can see this looks like antlers, literally. I had a customer and a fellow grower overseas in Singapore in Southeast Asia, and they grabbed a group of this particular plant, and they've been pretty consistent with it. And just remarkable how a Tillandsia can just get its bloom bracts and grow like that in such a weird shape. So here's more views of Steve's yard coming in through the main entrance on the side of the yard. I mean, it is just impenetrable. It is impenetrable. Some people think, my God, an alligator or something's going to jump out of there and bite me or something, because you just can't see anything anywhere. So here are more pictures of the Tillandsia Cobra variations. Again, it's a large grex, so many variations, so many different forms of it. It is an all-around cool, easy-growing plant to grow. So here we have probably one of my favorite Tillandsias. This is Tillandsia copenensis. This is a species. This comes from Copens, Honduras. This is pretty much in lowland elevation. I want to say around 1,000, just below 1,000 feet over in Honduras. This plant can grow up to 5 and even 6 feet tall, including the inflorescence. I've had this plant's inflorescence last well over a year. Pretty remarkable plant. As you can see, the blooms are a nice, crisp, frosty white color with some purple blooms that come out. Pretty remarkable plant. This is a specimen that I started growing when I first got into Tillandsias, and I've played around with this plant so much. We've got some pretty good crosses coming along of this beauty. Many of you guys should probably recognize this plant. This is Tillandsia hilde, one of the largest Tillandsias in the world, along with copenensis. They're among a small group of Tillandsias that grow to be monster size. As you can see, this hilde is growing in pretty much a wire basket with coconut husk liner, and I've dropped in there inside the liner some tree fern chunks in there, and that is pretty much it. Tillandsias do not like growing in the soil. Tillandsias do not like having any kind of excess media because that will cause the base to rot. Tillandsias are not plants that like to be watered extensively. They adapt to different climates. I can tell you that a lot of Tillandsia growers in the Hawaiian Islands, you see pictures on Facebook and you see pictures online and you see variations and you're like, darn, this same plant doesn't look the same as if I'm growing it in South Florida or in Southern California. Obviously, our climates are different. So a lot of these plants you're seeing will not look the same if you grow them down in your neck of the woods in Southern California, or if you grow them in Texas, you grow them in Puerto Rico, or you grow them in Hawaii or overseas. Every climate is different. So you see have these plants change and evolve within the climate they're in. So like I said, this is hilde. This is a species from Peru. They do remarkably well forming here in South Florida, and they do remarkably well in California and everywhere where I've been able to have the opportunity to ship them and send them to. So this is a taste of some of Steve's hybrids. This is Tillandsia Susie. This is a Capitata Red cross that Steve made. And you're going to see a lot of Capitata hybrids. You're going to see a lot of stuff out there. I'm only going to show you guys because I can go on for hours, but we're not going to do that, obviously. But I'm going to show you some of the best hybrids that Steve has and some of the best hybrids that Nestor has been making recently, and just remarkable. So this is Capitata Ice Orange. This is a cross that he just made out of the sport of the regular species of Capitata. He crossed it, and he got this nice orange. This is commercially available. You probably may see these at Home Depot, at Lowe's, at Ace Hardware, and you definitely will see these online. These are quite common, quite cheap to find. I have not seen these any more expensive than $25, $30 at most. But it's a nice, easy plant to grow. Doesn't require much care whatsoever. You have Tillandsia lurciana. This is a beautiful species from Mexico and Central America, an incredibly large bulbous base. I have seen these in the wild. This plant, you do have a lot of, it has pretty much a hollow cavity inside, just like ant plants. And this plant does have a tendency of attracting pretty harmless ants, as they like to find ways to get inside the interior of the plant. But a really, really nice, cool plant. A lot of hybrids have been made from this plant. And first picture is a pretty nice specimen getting going. And then the second picture, you see how the offsets are emerging from the an old blooming plant. So this is another nice hybrid that was named, that Steve named after a dear friend, the wife of a dear friend of mine. This is Tillandsia claricuculatus. I entered this plant at the Caloosahatchee Bromeliad Society on the Southwest Florida coast, and I won second in show in the Tillandsia category. This plant has just a remarkable frosty pink flat bracts. This is a cross of Chiapensis crossed with fasciculata. You definitely see the best of both of these parents. You have the growth structure and the close proximity of the petals of fasciculata, and then you have the scurf, the white scurf, and the frosty bracts of Chiapensis in it. So you definitely see the cross of both parents in this beauty. This is a beautiful Chiapensis crossed with Capitata Red. So as I showed you earlier, you have Capitata Orange, you have Capitata Red, you have Capitata Yellow. This is a cross that was made between Chiapensis with Capitata Red. And it was named Coconut Grove after a neighborhood here in the southern area of Miami, where Steve first grew up and lived. And as you can see on the left and on the right, this beauty's been grown as hard as you can imagine. This plant takes full sun from sunrise to sunset. You see that it has the bloom of a Capitata mixed with a Chiapensis. As you can see, you have the center of the plant growing out as the Capitatas bloom, and then you have the little mini bracts of the Chiapensis. This is probably one of the best and most popular plants that we have at shows, and we put in and take around on conferences and have available at the nursery. This is Tillandsia Chiapas gigantesco. So here's the story behind this plant. So Steve, back in the 1960s and the 1970s, Steve went to Honduras and Mexico, and he collected Tillandsia chiapensis. So as some of you may know, Tillandsia chiapensis in the wild is one bract. You see one little spike, and it's a small little plant, not very big. So what did Steve Coriel do? Well, Steve, through the last 20, 30 years, started crossing Chiapensis with Chiapensis with Chiapensis. Steve crossed this plant so many times that once he had a plant with 1 bract and 2 bracts, then he crossed the 2 bract plant with the 3 bract plant. Then he crossed the 3 bract plant with a 4 bract until he got this, a plant with 6 bracts, and in some cases 8. So he went ahead and registered this plant as Chiapas gigantesco. And not only that, the actual scale and size of this plant are huge. I've had Chiapas gigantescos grow literally 2 feet across in span, okay? And in length, I've seen this plant grow just under 2 feet. Not so big as 2 feet, but I would say about 1 foot and a little bit more. So some of these are some of the lines of Chiapas gigantesco he's been growing. As you can see, it's a large plant. You have a lot of offsets in the base. Some of them are 3 bracts, some of them are 4 bracts. He likes to play around with these plants and hybridize. And that's what happens when you start hybridizing a lot of these plants. You get a lot of these remarkable crosses that come out. This is Tillandsia catracho. So remember how I showed you guys earlier Tillandsia ice orange? Well, here's Chiapensis cross with capitata yellow. You can see beautiful scurf on the leaves, red coloring to it, and the bloom comes out just like a capitata. Very, very nice plant. A little bit unstable, but we've been playing around with it and we've been able to stabilize it and get it to be consistent. I would say one of the most remarkable of all of Steve's crosses and something that you see around is Tillandsia B. Coryell. B. Coryell was registered by Dennis Cathcart in Tropiflora, and he named it after Steve Coryell's late wife, B. As I said earlier, you know, you get species like Streptophylla and Chiapensis, where here's this cross between 2 species. Chiapensis and Streptophylla. Streptophyllas, you normally see them with a very, very, very bulbous base. Streptophylla is very distinct by leaves that curl down, bend downward, and have a very, very large base. Here you have the best of both of those parents. We do have 2 forms of B. Coryell. We have the Belize form and we have the regular straight B. Coryell. This is the B. Coryell. You can see a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful bloom. I know there's some members down in Southern California, like Barry Landau and David Kennedy, who I know they have some of these beautiful Tillandsias down there and pretty amazing. Both of those gentlemen I know for a fact have really, really, really wonderful collections of plants. But here's a beautiful cross of that. Tillandsia Owl's Nest. Here's another nice hybrid, Streptophylla crossed with fasciculata. This plant does get a bulbous base, but it tends to look this plant's cross tended more to the fasciculata family. So you can see the bloom is a little bit, has some similarities to Streptophylla, but in general, the plant tends more to be into the fasciculata family. Here we have 2 beautiful crosses to the left. Is Tillandsia Michelle, named after one of Steve's family members. Tillandsia Michelle is a cross of Chiapensis cross with Tillandsia Susie, which I showed you earlier, which was that red capitata cross. As you can see, this plant looks absolutely nothing and resembles nothing of the capitata other than the bloom. I would say that Tillandsia Michelle is the most popular on-demand hybrid that I'm asked for overseas. I literally have folks from the Philippines to Singapore to Hong Kong to Taiwan that they will give and do anything to get this particular hybrid or even some of the other ones that I'm going to show you now. That's a remarkable plant. And then to your right, you see Tillandsia beezy. That is a flabellata cross. Unfortunately, Steve does not have the cross information available, but we can assure you it is a flabellata cross, because if you can see the bloom, it does have a lot of resemblance to Tillandsia flabellata. Another one of Steve's hybrids, it's a rather small growing hybrid. It's called Tillandsia Tropical Fire. It's crossed with Tillandsia fasciculata tropiflora, which was a hybrid that was registered from Tropiflora, and Tillandsia Fire Orange. So you can see two different spectrums of plant gave us this small little plant. Not a very big plant at all, but a very showy bloom. You got variations in everything here. So here you have a plant that Steve registered called Miami Magic. Streptophylla crossed with Zeographica. Zeographica is another species from Central America and Mexico, along with, like I mentioned, Streptophylla. You see best of both parents in the bloom from the first to the second to the third picture. Zeographica tends to grow downward, very big plant, growing plant. And you see, as you can see in the base, you have a bulbous base. So you have the best of both parents in that plant. So you can see how remarkable it is when you cross two different plants, the kinds of beauties you get. And this is pretty much 15, 20 years of just lineage of just growing them out and getting stability and getting a good quality plant. And that's the key with a lot of hybridizers. They don't just start throwing things out there and start putting things out and registering them just because they look good. You want quality. You want something that is stable, that has good inflorescence, has good growth, can adapt to different environments. So this is some of the new crosses that Nestor Del Rio has begun to put up. This is Streptophylla crossed with Streptophylla. So Nestor pretty much crossed Streptophylla with another Streptophylla, and he, out of a grex of about 20 plants, got this very unusual sport, purple leaves. So you know Streptophylla has green leaves. So out of this whole batch, this mutation came out, and he went ahead and registered it Tommy Roberts. And as you can see on the left, just a beautiful dark growing plant with a nice white frosty bract and very, very deep, intense purple blooms. Very, very, very cool and unusual. Here's one of Steve's hybrids called Hell Bells, a cross with Capitata Fire Orange with Limbata. As you can see, this beauty got more lineage from Limbata because of the bloom. Tillandsia Limbata has more of a crested type of a bloom, as you see there. So this was named Hell's Bell. Cute little mini Tillandsia that Nestor Del Rio registered. This is Tillandsia concolor crossed with Limbata. So as you can see, this pretty much got more tendency to concolor from the bloom. And this was named Tillandsia Elsa. He named it after a dear friend of his, a really, really cool plant. As you can see, all of these variations, this is literally, like I mentioned earlier, you've got years and years and years of growing these from seed and then just growing them out and then testing it and making sure that they are consistent. So this is Tillandsia Christian James. This is Tillandsia fasciculata boterii crossed with bulbosa. So for those of you that know Tillandsia bulbosa has a very, very big, fat, narrow base with its leaves pretty well compacted and very well stacked. So you see the bloom on there. The bloom is resemblance to the boterii, and then you see the plant structure that looks just like the bulbosa. This is a new hybrid that he just registered called Christian James. A new release that he literally, this just got registered, I want to say about 2 weeks ago. This is called Tillandsia Maribel. Again, as you're seeing through the slides, Zeographica cross with concolor. Obviously, you see the plant structure is just like Zeographica. And then you see the bloom that is identical to Tillandsia concolor. Quite a remarkable plant. This plant grows up to the size of a basketball. And the bloom is just astonishing. So this plant, we just released it for sale overseas to Singapore and overseas. And this will be one of our new releases at the Bromeliad World Conference in Sarasota, Florida in next year in June in 2021. Another brand new release called Tillandsia Jeanette. Again, you got Tillandsia Zeographica crossed with Streptophylla. So you can see the structure of Zeographica with the similarities of its bloom. And this has also a bulbous base of Streptophylla. Cute little clustering Tillandsia. This is called Isabella. For those of you that may have it, I would be surprised that those Tillandsia collectors that we have here in your society doesn't have Funkiana. This is a Funkiana cross with Daisy lyrifolia. So nice clumping plant, small bloom, stoloniferous. You'll start seeing off pretty much the new growth will come out in between the leaves and it'll continue to grow out until it makes a little basket of it. To the left, you see a little clump of it. Really nice, intense orange to reddish color. Really, this is a nice plant to grow in full sun. The one to your left, to your right-hand side was one that was grown a little bit more of shade with more fertilizer, and you can see the distinction of the Funkiana in the plant with the orange bloom. A nice cross from Steve Coriel. You have Tillandsia Katie Steyer. You have Fire Orange crossed with Streptophylla. As you can see as well, you have the characteristics of Capitata. And then you have the larger base of Streptophylla towards the bottom of the plant. Another beautiful hybrid that Nestor Del Rio made. This is called Tillandsia Caitlin Roberts, named after one of his family members. Again, a Tillandsia fasciculata tropiflora crossed with Streptophylla. This plant does not exhibit so much of a bulbous base, but it does exhibit quite an incredible bloom. I've seen this plant bloom, the actual bloom bract become larger than the actual plant itself. Very, very, very nice plant. Extremely slow. This is probably one of the slowest growing Tillandsia hybrids that we've grown here at the nursery. And Nestor has grown, and quite astonishing. Probably the most coveted of Steve Coriel's hybrids. This is Tillandsia Vicky Jane. This is Tillandsia chiapensis crossed with Flexuosa. Flexuosa is a species that is native to the Bahamas, to Cuba, and to the Everglades, and down here in the Everglades of southern Florida. This hybrid was made by Steve. And as you can see, this is probably one of the most highly valued Tillandsias of all in every one of these slides in all of this collection. This particular plant, not only in auctions, but in everything, has fetched well over $1,200 for an offset. This plant is remarkable. You see in the different pictures there, the multi-bract and blooming. You see the offsets in the bottom. Pretty much, we've only allowed a couple of these plants to be released. I have a couple of hobbyists who've gotten them in Hawaii and in California. And this plant, I mean, this is one of those that every commercial grower has been killing themselves to get their hands on, and this is a remarkable plant in every way, shape, or form. So pretty much that concludes my program. Again, I appreciate everybody's hospitality for inviting me over. I want to thank Ken. I want to thank every one of you. All of these plants and everything that you anything Tillandsia wise that you have any questions about, or if you're interested in acquiring any of the plants that I showed you, or any Tillandsia from Steve Coriel or Nestor Del Rio, pretty much you can email me, or you can visit my eBay store, and you can just send me any kind of contact, and I'd be more than glad to send you the availability list and send you pictures and stuff. I can tell you, Ken has amassed a pretty remarkable collection of these Tillandsias through the years, and I can tell you, oh, let me better said, I can let him tell you how remarkable and how easy these plants are to grow. And yes, some of these hybrids do fetch a pretty high dollar, but remember that these plants have taken 20 to 30 years to grow them out and pretty much get them to where they're at now. And now we're seeing the fruition of 20, 30, 40, 50 years worth of hybrids now coming into line. And next slide, this is if you are on eBay, and for those of you that like Neergelias and bromeliads and everything, I am also well known down here in South Florida. As I alluded to earlier, I'm a big bromeliad grower, so I'm not only into Tillandsias, but I'm probably, I want to say about 80% of my collection are Chester Skotak hybrids. And I grow just about every single Chester Skotak hybrid you can imagine. Obviously, you're not going to have all of them, but I have well over 200 varieties of them, if not more. And on eBay, I do post a lot of these spectacular beauties on for sale, and a lot of new releases, a lot of new stuff. So you could also buy a lot of the Tillandsias and a lot of these plants via eBay. So if you're ever interested, this is a chance that you can take a snapshot of this image or write down. You can look, if you want to search it on eBay, you can look at those 3 plants below. You can just type in their name on the search, and you can find me via there. And pretty much, that is my presentation.
Wow, thank you. That was fantastic.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't write down the very first Tillandsia you mentioned. I didn't get the name. If you could give it to me, the very first.
I'm gonna roll right back to the beginning. So you tell me.
The very first one.
So the very first one was Tillandsia Steve. You have Tillandsia Steve and you have Tillandsia Super Steve.
Oh,
Tillandsia Super Steve is probably one I would recommend better than Tillandsia Steve, because Super Steve has pretty much evolved into a better growing plant. You get more bloom bracts. It's more showy. It's a nicer plant. And there is one on eBay right now for auction for $25. If you're,
really? Yes. I'm interested.
So go on eBay and just type in Tillandsia Super Steve, and you'll see it there. And the auction ends tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Anybody have any other questions any of you would like to ask?
I have a question. You mentioned that you grow in coconut fiber.
Yes, I do the Hildies. I grow pretty much Copenensis and Hildy in that material because of the sheer size of the plant. You can't put it in a pot or in a basket because it is just too big. It obviously a 4-prong basket. The hanger is not large enough to hold that plant, and the weight is just too much. So I put them in those baskets, which let me pull it back up. So I pretty much grow it in those baskets because it could sustain the weight more than in the orchid baskets.
I use some chopped pieces of coconut mixed in for my Neoregelia mix, and somebody said that the coconut might be a problem because a lot of it's grown near the ocean and it picks up salt, and that was too salty.
So the answer to that question is the coconut fiber and the coconut chunks that I use, I buy it prepackaged. I'm lucky to have two orchid supply locations here in South Florida, and one of them does ship anywhere in the United States. And if anybody's interested, you can write this down. Their name is OFE International. OFE International. And they are located in Homestead, Florida, and they ship all kinds of orchid material and orchid mixes and stuff. So I buy my coconut chunks from them. You don't have to worry about salts. You don't have to worry about anything like that. Pretty much all the material that I use is pretty much freshwater. If I use driftwood, it's from freshwater or from freshwater environments, and I tend to stay away from saltwater environments, period.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody have any other questions?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Most of your Tillandsias that you showed look like they grow to fairly large size. The Owl's Nest, Tropical Fire, and Elsa, those are small
Yes.
sized plants that don't get gigantic.
Yes. So when I've referred to as gigantic, I'm talking about plants like Chiapas gigantescos. So if you have a yard or if you live in an apartment, I mean, I have customers that live in apartments and have balconies, and they can grow any of these plants, any of the Tillandsias I have. The only two that I would say would probably be a little bit more challenging for tight spaces is Tillandsia hilde and Copenensis. Everything else you see on there are rather medium to large size Tillandsias. Now, the ones that you alluded to, which were Tropical Fire and Elsa, those are small plants. I would say they're about yay big. Nothing larger than that. They are small.
Yay big. I'm sorry, I don't see a picture of yay big. Could you give a estimated inches?
I would say, let me get the tape measure I got here. I would say they would, I mean, Tropical Fire, I would say would be no more than 8-9 inches.
Okay.
And same with Elsa. They're small Tillandsias. They would fit perfectly in a 6-inch orchid square basket.
What about that Owl's Nest?
Owl's Nest, I would say, would get about 1 foot tall, and I would say about 4 to 5 inches wide. Not much bigger than that. A lot of these fasciculata hybrids are pretty much not large growing. If you let them clump, they will become large. But if you maintain a single plant with a couple of offsets, pretty much a lot of these plants grow upward because of the bloom bract. So pretty much they're pretty easy. As you can see, let me put this slide. So you can use it as a reference. So if you see some of the pictures that I'm putting there for you, you see pretty much the average size of some of these plants. So they're medium to large growing, but not all of them. Not all of them. And they're very, and like I said, they're very easy to grow. They don't require much maintenance at all. And I mean, Ken can pretty much jump in and give you guys some pointers of how he's been growing them. And he has a pretty extensive collection of the hybrids he's been getting from me through the years.
Excuse me, this is Diane. I was the one asking you about going on to eBay. And
Yes,
when I typed in Bello Tropicals 8, it didn't, it says no matches.
Okay, so that's because you won't be able to find it under search. So on the search on the top, if you type Tillandsia Super Steve, you will see the picture.
Okay, I'll try. If not, I'm coming back to you.
Let me see if I can pull it up.
Okay, because I'd like to order it.
Hold on 1 second.
I will say while we're doing that I haven't mastered the trick in Florida of never watering them.
No, we have a different climate.
Yeah, and I haven't been able to get the size out of them. They do change depending on which ones, but they're all really nice. I have
Probably need
a queen.
fertilizer.
Well, they get rain during the summer.
They get a lot.
Yeah, we get dry during the summer, so we're completely opposite.
That's right.
Hold on, I'm trying to get these up.
Okay.
All right, so if you guys see my screen, does everybody see my screen?
Yep.
In the
Okay.
corner. Oh, I don't.
So if you see my screen, you can see all the plants that are listed. And if you can see towards the middle, you see Tillandsia super Steve, and it says Coriel.
No, I still see your presentation, not your screen.
Aha, okay. So let me
Yeah, you have to.
unswitch. 1 second.
Yep.
I just need to know how to get to it.
I'm gonna show you guys right now.
Okay.
All right, do you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so if you type on the search on the top, okay, when you're on eBay, okay, you type Tillandsia Super Steve, and you will see this picture there, and you can find all my listings. So let me scroll up.
Okay.
See how I'm typing on the top on the search?
Oh, yeah.
So you
Just go
type
to
in
eBay.
Tillandsia Super Steve.
Okay, so I'd like to get it.
All right, so this is a plant that's for auction. So you put in a bid. If you have an eBay account, you put in a bid for it, and whatever the ending bid is, which ends tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning, you win that plant.
Oh, okay. I get it. Thank you.
So you see how it is, and then same thing. If you want to type in Tillandsia Cobra, which I have listed, you type in Tillandsia Cobra on the top, and then you hit enter, and you see it.
I see. Okay.
All right, and then what you do is, once you type the listing, if you can see that the listing is there, if you want to see the seller's other items, you look to your left. I mean to your right, and if you look to your bottom, middle, and the right, where it says Bello Tropicals 8 seller information, you click on see other items. And you can see every listing that I have, and you can save me as a seller. And whenever you see stuff, you can do that. Now, if you don't want to deal with eBay, you can just email me directly. You send me a list of what you like, and I will email you back, and I will tell you this is the prices for this size. And I take PayPal, and I also take checks. So you can do either way. So that's an example that I'm showing you guys, that you guys can be able to see.
I recommend you email them.
Yes, I recommend the email
I
better.
think I'm going to email you.
What is your
Right now.
email address?
Okay.